Hey everyone, welcome back to Tea with the Supremes. Welcome to our first full episode of 2022. Yes, Julie here with Savannah and Cass.
Hey everyone.
Hey, and we are so excited everyone's back with us. We've finished a full week of January and we're all still here. So
Physically, we're here physically.
We are here.
moving. So this week, we're going to talk about mental health in the workplace, which is an interesting topic, I feel like, and very timely because of all of the scenarios that have come to light, over the past 2 years. So first, let's talk traditionally or historically. How have you all experienced mental health in the workplace? One, just mindset wise, in the offices or job sites, wherever that be. So first, what has been your experience? And secondly, to the mental health aspect, has there ever been resources available in your experience in any of the environments that you have worked at?
Oh boy. I've worked some quite interesting jobs. I used to work retail, which that's physically draining, which then takes a toll on your mental health. When I was a case manager, I had a caseload of 300 clients. I've referred to that before. Even just looking at that list, this is so bad. Just looking at that list, I just wanted to walk out and be like, all right, peace. But that's not the person I am. So I took care of my clients. Yeah. That was probably the worst of it because when I was a case manager, all my stress from work affected my home life. And it was kind of just a big mess. So knowing your mental health at work is very, very important. And knowing where you stand with your work is very important. And knowing how to set appropriate boundaries like we've talked about.
That was a whole bunch of knowledge in one little nugget. But yes, to what Cass said, listen to it again. For real, like you have to know your worth, and your mental health at work has such a huge impact on your mental health in every space outside of your work. So that's really important to recognize. I'm glad that you pointed that out.
So just as like a definition of workplace mental health, just so we kind of have that baseline. So workplace stress isn't uncommon, but when left unchecked, it can lead to bigger problems such as depression and anxiety. When this happens, stress not only creates negative emotions, but it can also result in lower productivity and the inability to concentrate on work and strain relationships with colleagues and supervisors.
I think the mental health, like in the workplace, in my other jobs, I don't even know. Like I never felt overwhelmed or too, like there were days obviously where it was like too much, but it was never a constant feeling. One job that I ended up just hating was like a table games dealer, and that was just too much. So I had to leave. Like I couldn't do the hours, I couldn't deal with the drunk people, and it was just a continuous, like every night, the same thing, different face, same drunk person. I don't know. So for my mental health, I had to leave that work environment. But in my current job, I have a daycare. So like the first year of opening the daycare, I really neglected my mental health and was really on a mission to like cater to all the families. Like, I'm going to be open these days. I'm going to be open late if they need me. Like, I just tried to be everything for them. And it really started affecting me because I was like, crap, I can't take my son to soccer. Crap, I can't take my kids to this doctor's appointment. Crap, I'm missing this. Like, oh no, I need to close this day because I have an appointment for myself. So it's like really took a toll, and learned to set boundaries. Like, nope, I can only do 4 days. These are my hours. Like, you need to have your kids. Like, I have a life outside of this. So just learning to respect myself and value my own time has been huge for my mental health in my workplace.
I love that too, learning to respect yourself, because that really is what it is. For me, I have so much respect for people that I work with and people that I engage with that it does ends up, if you prioritize what they need and what the company needs and what is best for your career, what's best for your job, at some point something's got to give, and usually that is you. So it is a disservice and disrespect to yourself. I definitely had, which took me far too long. I had a job that I loved. I loved the job. I loved my employees. I really enjoyed working with a lot of the people there. We had like such a massive surge of business that we grew way too fast. But during that giant growth period, it was so incredibly stressful. And as much as people realized it and you could say that it was stressful and you could say that it was too much, it didn't matter and no one actually cared. So they were like, yeah, but this is what, pays your salary and whatever. As employees, you see your company thriving, but there's nothing, no incentive for you. Often places do like mandatory overtime and they're like, but you're getting overtime pay. Well, if it's mandatory, that's not good for your mental health. That means I have to do this. Whether or not I physically or mentally can, I have to do this. Like, yeah, I'm getting more money, but is it worth it? Is the offset worth it? So in that scenario, it was terrible. And it got to the point where I had to leave. And that's what happened. And then it put me in a much better mindset, mental health trajectory after leaving. Although, I wish I didn't have to, because I really did love the job and the people. But yeah, it took a huge toll. And I think I've spoken to that briefly on the podcast before. It took a toll on our family life. I never saw my son. At that time, I only have one child. I never saw him. I would be at work before he got up. He'd be in bed before I got home. It killed my husband and my relationship, to the point that it almost cost us our marriage. So it did. While we were financially good, it negatively influenced every other area in my life. So that was the worst. And then I was in another company, but I had a situation where I had multiple situations, but I had one specifically that involved sexual harassment, and that I was going to file a complaint, but we didn't have an internal HR department. We had like a phone number you could call, and a female before me had called the number, filed a complaint, which got reconciled. I think financially they dealt with whatever. But then her manager basically let everyone know, like, go easy on her. She had a complaint. We got to watch her and make sure that she's fine. And it's like, that in itself is a complaint. Like, that's no one else's business. So I was like, what on earth? So I didn't file a complaint, which is not beneficial to anyone, I feel like. But I ended up not working there much longer either.
Well, that's so crazy that you mentioned that, because so we have, at my current job, we have one of those confidential employee like reporting hotlines, corporate compliance. That's the word I'm looking for. So there was a point where an old supervisor, she no longer works for the company, she had said to me, I know you don't want to do billing for the rest of your life, and that's why you're going to school. And she basically, like, the best way I could put it is like, she shit on me for going to school and following a career path. And I took a step back and I thought about it for a minute, and I'm like, this is bad to say, but she's discriminating against me because I don't want to work in this specific office the rest of my life. No, I don't. However, I took this position because I like the company that I work for. It will open so many doors for me once I'm done with my master's degree. So I called the corporate compliance hotline, did all that thing, and I called back because you have to like call and give them a code to check on the report or whatever it is. And they said they didn't have enough information to do anything about it. I'm like, you're not even gonna look into this? Like, that's deteriorating to somebody's mental health, because it's so discouraging that you're not even willing to look into like a serious report.
I think it's detrimental to have external HR in the first place. I mean, there's one thing to hire people, but like from a business standpoint, it's great. It's great to have external HR because if you need to fire someone, you can have, it's like hands free. You can have other people address all the issues. It's like not, you can disassociate yourself really. But from a personal standpoint, and it's like human resources, it's person to person. It's supposed to be relational. It doesn't serve the purpose. It doesn't understand the environment. It doesn't understand like the nuances. I worked for a family-owned business, which comes with its own, you know, when a lot of family members work there, it comes with its own nuances, or certain people get certain benefits, you know, and that can create problems. But if there's not someone in-house that can understand those types of things, then it's just, I get it from a business perspective, but not from a people perspective.
Because like HR has to be objective. And if they don't know the person, like that outside source doesn't know what happens in that office every day. So
Yeah.
I've come across something like quite a few times on social media, and it says, take care of you, because if you die today, your job will be posted online before your obituary.
It's so true. I read an article one day. This person was just really stressed. They had a person that was beloved by the company pass away. I think it was maybe hospitality industry potentially. So this person beloved by the company worked there for 40 years or something. There was the funeral or the wake or whatever it was that a bunch of the employees got to go, and it was like so great because the company understood like the value of this person and what she meant to everyone. And then as they came back from the wake, her job was posted on a monitor in the lobby like that same day. And the person said, like, this whole time I was thinking, what a great company I have. And then like just to get hit with that, like immediately, like literally it was instant. And like, again, I understand it from a business standpoint, but it's so disheartening from a people standpoint. And that is, you know, you can't kill yourself for someone else. That's why I highly advocate for entrepreneurship and doing things that produce value for yourself, because if you're not making money for you, you're making money for someone else, and that's how they see you. They see you as your revenue stream. You're not a person, and that does factor into mental health. So as we've moved through the pandemic, there's been a lot of changes. A lot of people have moved virtually, and then a lot of people didn't have the option to move virtually, and that killed people's mental health as well. What is your take on that process? I know, Cass, you've experienced that personally, where you've been in-house and not had the option to go virtual, and then partially had the option to go virtual. So how does that factor?
well, now that I've had a taste of the good stuff, the good juice, now I just want it all the time. I love working from home. I feel like I'm more productive when I work from home because like I can listen to my podcast, I can listen to my own music. I don't have to listen to the same shitty 80s songs on repeat.
As a PSA to any employers that are listening, music is such a big deal. And I remember the days when I had to listen to other people's music that like, it felt like a drill in my brain. And it is like, just let people listen to their own music. If they have the option to wear headphones or one headphone, oh my gosh, It makes all the difference. But anyways, I digress. Go ahead.
No, literally. And I was just talking to my lead about this too. I'm like, if I could just have one headphone in my head and listen to my music, like, you don't know how much more work I would get done every day when I'm in the office. So in efforts to retain more people and make it more equitable for employees, our work has now implemented a hybrid schedule where we work from home 2 days and are in the office 3 days, which is not bad at all, especially if you're like me and you work from home Mondays and Fridays. It's like a 4-day weekend, but that's another story for another time. I love working from home. I know that for some people, for me, I know how to work technology, right? I grew up in all the technological advancements. So it was very easy for me to transition to home. However, some of my counterparts who are of the older generation and are not as technologically savvy as me, or any millennial for that matter, I know that they really struggled. Something that helped them was, I was like, maybe get another screen, because at our work we have 2 screens, and transitioning from 2 screens to 1 screen is very, very difficult. Especially like for me, I do payment posting. So like I have to have my data on one side and I have to have my inputting program on the other side. So I took it as like I'm going to help my coworkers to try to enjoy this a little bit more. But for all the people that haven't had the blessing or the opportunity to work from home, especially our first responders in this pandemic, I salute you guys, because my fiance's aunt is a nurse at a hospital around here, and she is just so mentally beat from this pandemic. She texted our family group chat the other day. There were 3 COVID deaths in her unit within a 8-hour shift that she worked. So, and she's seeing that every day. That's not just like one day that she saw that. That's every day she goes into work. So to all our nurses, doctors, first responders, police, firemen, paramedics, you guys have been a godsend through all of this.
Yes, we salute you guys. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And to that end, we, my husband and I were actually talking about this recently. And I'm curious if when all is said and done, maybe not now, but there's so many fields, nursing being one of them, teaching also being one of them, that they didn't have the option to not work. And the mental health has been degraded so much, and the pay is traditionally low in the first place, that what, other than pure unadulterated passion, what would encourage people to pursue those fields? Like, I'm curious if in, one of my children's generations, when they get to the workforce, if there's not going to be a drought of teachers, a drought of nurses, because what would make you pursue those fields if they're not financially feasible, if they're bad for your mental health? What is going to encourage people to pursue those as careers? They're going to have insane incentives. Because I look at teachers, I just say teachers because that's what I have the most experience with throughout this process is, my children were home, but their teachers were teaching from home. Last year, my son's pre-K teacher, she's a mother of 4, I think, and all of her children were home, and she was teaching from home, and her husband was working from home. Insanely difficult. And then when they go back to school, they have to go back to school with the risk of school shootings, with the risk of health issues. Like, how seriously detrimental is that to your mental health? And how do you navigate that?
I can't even fathom, because it's not only our nurses and doctors, it's our teachers, it's our retail workers, it's our restaurant workers, I'm biased to this, but our railroaders, like, they didn't have an option to not be off.
Mm-hmm.
From my job, I obviously already work from home, but with COVID, it's like I can't take care of kids via Zoom. Like, I'm just shit out of luck. Like, I don't get to work with COVID. And then it happened again with the evacuation. Like, it's just been continuous. Like, every 6 months, it's like, oh, 3 weeks out of work. Oh, 3 weeks out of work. Oh, 3 weeks out of work. So it's like, I don't get paid for that. I don't have time to prepare for that. Like, so it is stressful because it's like you always have to have like your reserve to make sure you can cover your bills, because who the heck knows? Oh, am I gonna have kids this week? Like,
and that reserve moves quick.
And then it's like either like we had COVID and then everybody had stayed home because they were scared of COVID. So I didn't have kids, like how I said, the evacuation. So if another kid gets COVID, like, I'm required to tell the parents, like, hey, there was a case. Obviously, there's another couple weeks where shit out of luck. So it's like, it's really hard to prepare for those kinds of situations, especially since it's continuous.
Yeah, it is. Everything's so up in the air. I don't know. I was very fortunate. So I started working from home right after my second son was born, and I've worked from home ever since, which is amazing. I lost a ton of business. The majority of my income comes through serving restaurants, and restaurants took a massive hit obviously. So I lost a ton of revenue as well, but at least I got some, and I was able to, I was already at home. I wasn't forced to leave the house. When other people our kids were out of school for a year and a half. So when everyone else was scrambling to try to figure out how do I manage this, at least I was already home and I already had that going for me. But yeah, this year in general has been a hit. I feel like to everyone's mental health. And when they say mental health at work, even just parents that are at home, any parents that had to be with their kids constantly, I can say I'm obsessed with my kids. I adore them, but spending literal months with them where I didn't get away from them at all was draining. So mental health is important in any workspace.
So something that my work started offering, and I think a lot more companies are starting to offer this in this pandemic time that we're in, is the EAPs, so the employee assistant programs. And that could be for like mental health, that could be childcare. Our work does like an emotional vitals, they call it. So I actually just found this out. They do like mindfulness seminars. They do, there's like counselors that you can text all the time. So some places are trying, but especially for our essential workers, there needs to be a bigger push for those resources, because you can only burn a candle so long before you're out of wax and the wick is all the way at the bottom.
I think there needs to be too, like they need to be given time to access those resources, because a lot of these employees are being overworked because there's such a shortage. So they have nobody to cover these shifts. So it's like, how do these employees find the time to take care of their mental health? They're just literally being run until they can't no more.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't think people do. I don't think people do. They have no time, because especially now, all the people that are overworked in the first place and dealing with all of this, even if you look at like service workers, there has been many, I've seen many videos of like retail workers or like restaurant workers getting completely berated or attacked about physically or verbally attacked about mask mandates and what have you. And they're like, I don't make enough money for this. Like, I'm dealing with so much on top of that. Then they're dealing with this added pressure. And then they have families, they have other things that outside of work that they have to deal with. So mentally just debilitating. The Harvard Business Review did an article talking about mental health and how, it's changing, obviously, with all the reality of what work is now and what life is now. And the recommendations on what employers should provide, the first thing speaks to what Savannah was talking about, is culture change. Like, it needs to be top down. The higher level people, Cass has talked many times about mental health days. Like, that has to be a reality, and that has to be from the top down, where they acknowledge and encourage people to prioritize their mental health. Like, have you experienced at all any workspace that has been pro? I see faces. I definitely haven't. And I've had many jobs. I had 2 jobs at the age of 15, and I've worked ever since, and I've never had a company that was pro. I've never had a company that was pro taking sick days, let alone like physical symptomatic sick days, let alone a mental day.
Having my own business, I feel guilty. Like, if I'm sick, like I have to be literally dying for me to close. I feel so guilty, like, because it's not just me. Like if it was on a company, it's like they're missing one employee, but me, it's like I leave however many families without childcare. So it's like I feel so guilty if I have to close. If I take a vacation, like I give everybody 3 months notice so they have plenty of time to prepare. Like, I feel extremely guilty if I have to close randomly or without a lot of notice. And that's my own business. Like,
right. Yeah, that's a one person. There's so many companies that could afford, like, granted, it'll be an inconvenience, but it's an inconvenience. It's an inconvenience that could literally save an employee, both from work and from life. So it's like, just give it a day. What's a day going to do, really, in the grander scheme of things? The second recommendation is make more sustainable ways of working. So we talk about, the option to work from home. I remember, so I've always worked I haven't always, but in my professional life, I've always worked in like a technical capacity. So it's been remote working on like clients' computers from an office. And I remember the first company that I worked for, they didn't want people to work from home. They were so convinced that people wouldn't actually work from home, that they like wouldn't let people do it. But that company, I had so much work that I often did work from home because I couldn't fit it all in the workday, and I'd rather work the extra hours from home than from work. And that was fine. They were fine as long as it wasn't the 9 to 5. So I remember one day we had a massive snowstorm. I tried to bring my son to daycare, and like I lived in the country, a bunch of the roads were blocked. There was one of those giant plows was actually in a ditch, which I've never seen before. I get almost to daycare and find out that the daycare is closing because they can't get there. So then I have to turn around, make it the whole way home. I get home. I drive all the way to work, which is another 45 minutes, get to the office, find out they don't have power. My boss has been there since early, find out they don't have power, but I have work to do. And he's like, can you just work from home? I could have worked from home 2 hours ago. If you had told me 2 hours ago, I could have worked from home. So then I had to drive 45 minutes back home. Well, what's normally a 45-minute drive plus snow, and then start my work then, which, then took me longer. And I was like, all because they were overly concerned that your manager needed to be watching you just in case.
That's what I hate.
Yeah.
I hate micromanagers.
Oh, God,
like
me too. Mhm.
that contributes to mental health at work so much. If you've been in that situation, you know. If you know,
Mhm.
you know, right? So just chill. Like your employees are going to do
Mhm.
their jobs. I promise. And if they don't, you'll find out.
Right,
It's
it will become obvious. There are ways to find out without babysitting them.
exactly.
There was a book I read, and it was kind of about like the motivation behind the things that we do. And I don't remember if it was a person who wrote it or they were referring to somebody that they the company that they ran, like they was no 40-hour week. Like the employees were required to complete certain tasks. They were not required to maintain a certain schedule. So as long as they completed it by the deadline, they can be at home, be at the office, whatever they decided. But their production rate went up. Like all
Yeah,
the positive things
everything.
happened because of this change that they made.
I completely agree. Circling back to the music, so my department, we would speak with clients on the phone, but we weren't always on the phone. And I let all of my employees listen to music. And I basically went by that. I was like, listen, if you get a phone call, you need to answer it. If I'm talking to you or a colleague is talking to you and are not engaging because you can't hear them or you're distracted, we'll have a problem. But if you can listen to your own music and still do your job productively, I don't care. And they were always productive. I never had a problem. I never had to tell someone to turn something off, and they liked it better. And actually other departments were jealous because they weren't allowed to listen to music. I'm like, listen, that's your manager's thing, but these guys do their work. Why am I going to punish them for doing a good job? Like, get your stuff done. If you get it done, you get it done. That's all that matters. That's all the company really cares about. And it's better customer service. We always got touted for our customer service because my employees tended to be happier. So I totally agree.
Funny concept.
I know, right? And the last thing that the Harvard Business Review recommends is deeper connection. And it says, check in, ask employees, how are you? Which is so basic, but it's like they're saying the importance of empathy and authenticity cannot be overstated. And again, 100% like agree. Just asking and genuinely caring, like, how are you? Are you okay? And if your employee says no, being like, okay, well, then we need to fix that because that's what's important. It seems like such a novel concept. You know what I mean? Like it should be common sense. Happier people work harder. Happier people are more productive. Happier employees, like look at all of the fun stuff that places like Google have in their offices. They have like nap pods and they have all these fun activities, whatever. One guy I used to work with moved to work for the Chive. I don't know if you guys know what the Chive is. Their office has slides and they have parties all the time. They all have all kinds of stuff. those employees work harder and they're happier. They enjoy it. The longevity of a person's career within the company is longer. Collectively, the environment is more positive. It's great for mental health.
My mom, just a little random side story. My mom used to work for this company that at 4:00 every Friday, they had a beer cart that would go around and you would pick your beer. And at 4:00, you would crack open your beer on a Friday and have a beer with your coworkers before you went home for the day. And it's just like, it's little things like that, that, I don't know, like, it doesn't have to be alcohol related, but like, it shows your employees that you care, and we're all in this struggle, this work struggle together. Crazy concept that if you care about your employees and show you care, that will be more.
They'll care about you.
Wild concept.
Yes, true
Crazy how that
story.
works.
Back in the day, that's why people used to work so long, because there was a personal investment. The employer had a personal investment in the employee and vice versa, which is very often not the case. So a statistic for everyone: among people in the workplace, 83% of men and 72% of women report that workplace stress affects their personal lives. And that's from the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. And I would wager to say that the percentages aren't higher because whoever they surveyed weren't actually stressed at work at that time. I feel like if you are stressed at work, it will affect your personal life, unless you're completely able to divide the realms. But most people aren't able to do that entirely,
Especially when your work
now.
is at home. Like,
Yeah.
how do you separate it?
Yeah, I can't imagine. So running your own business from home, as you said, and you said you've learned to build boundaries. How? Like, for me, when it got too much, I don't know, that it makes me wonder a ton of things. Your workspace is your home space, which I kind of get now, which kind of drives me crazy, because there's no like peace space, because you're still at your home and that's where you work. So it reminds you of work. But how do you get that peace when, like, say you're overworked or say you're overstressed and it's at home and it is what it is. You can't give yourself a day off. How do you manage that?
So how I said, it's taken a lot of like trial and error, I guess. When I first started, I didn't have any concept of that. And now it's like when I have time off, I'm like, I don't want to be at my home because I work out, like I need a break from my house.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also only work 4 days a week, but I work 10 to 11 hours those days. So I'm still getting those like 40 hours, but having that extra day that I know, like, okay, on this day, I can do my appointments, I can make my kids' appointments, is just something I can kind of plan ahead of time, instead of whereas I did before, it was like randomly, this day I have to close for this day I have to close for that. And then just like for me, it was like all these other parents, like they would take a vacation, like, and I would get like a day, oh hey, it's Friday, but next week we're not gonna be here at all. So it's like, well, they can do it. Like, why can't I? Like, why do I not feel okay with that? So I mean, for me, I have to make sure I give everybody ample time before I can do anything. Otherwise, I feel guilty. But yeah, it is really hard to separate your work from your home when you work at home. Like, I don't know, like if I'm feeling overworked or something. I also have like hired somebody to help me. So just learning to do things. I was really overwhelmed because I was school, work, cleaning the house. So I also hired somebody to help me clean the house. So it's like just finding areas where I can let people help me.
Yeah.
That's trivial.
Let people help. Yeah, that's an excellent point, which is a difficult place for most. But yes, excellent point. Sometimes you have to, and it's better for everyone. You're supplying employment to someone else. You're making your life easier. You're giving yourself peace of mind. The other thing that you mentioned that I'm glad you mentioned is having a set schedule. I think that's so underrated by employers. I used to, I think I mentioned it before, but I used to manage a Burger King, and we had like 1 million part-time employees. We had a bunch of kids that I say kids, like 16-year-olds, 16 to 18-year-olds. And even some of the older kids, there were a bunch of part-time and then you had full-time. And the full-time employees tend to have set schedules, but part-time don't. And it's like, just try to give them a set schedule. It doesn't have to be the Monday through Friday. Sometimes people, even full-time employees, sometimes people would rather have every Wednesday off versus this week I have Saturday, 3 weeks from now I have Sunday, knowing 3 months from now, I'm still going to have like I know what my schedule is. So I can plan my life. It's consistent. Like routine goes a long way for a lot of people. So that should be a big part of it. Allow your employees some sort of consistency, because I worked that schedule for the longest time, and so did my husband, where we wouldn't know that weekend what our schedule for the next week is. And it's so hard to plan your life. That adds so much more stress, because you can't have mental health appointments, you can't have doctor's appointments, you can't see people, you can't make any plans. And that just jacks up your life too. So scheduling, that's a good piece. And when you're remote, you can often let people work flexible schedules so they can work it around their life, and people can still get stuff done. So lots of good points.
Girl, I wish.
Right? I say I'm so in the ideal life schedule wise at this point. I say that as I move into potentially school counseling, where I'm not a morning person and I'd have to be up super early, which I don't know how that would ever work. I don't know what I was thinking. But like right now I can work when it fits. I have things to do. I have kids to manage. The pandemic, I had kids virtual learning to manage, and I could still work. A lot of times my work is 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, but it's my time. I can do it when it's convenient for me. And I always get rave reviews, but I can do it in what works for me. It's not debilitating to myself. So schedule goes a long way. So as we talked about mental health at work, we talked about a lot of ways it can be difficult. So as we wrap up, just knowing that it is a challenge for everyone, it's beneficial to talk to other people and see how they manage the process, how their company manages the process, because some people are innovative with their ideas. Some people have easy things to incorporate that work. So even small changes can make a big difference to make your life and those around you, your lives easier and happier. Because like we said, if your mental health suffers at work, it's going to suffer at home and everywhere else. At no time than now, we need our mental health to be real good. Let's start 2022 with great mental health. So as a challenge to our listeners, try to find a way, either through discussing with other people or a recommendation to your employer on a small thing that can be incorporated to help morale and help the mental health environment in your workplace, whatever that is. So Cass, as we complete our first full episode of 2022, let's have our first mindfulness. What you got for us?
All right. So everybody take a deep breath. We're going into 2022 as bad bitches. Anyways.
As always, but
yeah. So my mindfulness for the week is that if you are feeling overwhelmed at work, try and find different ways to kind of alleviate some of that anxiety, or I know people get depressive symptoms. So try and do some grounding techniques that I've talked about before. When you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe just take a lap around the office and just focus on your breath. Go to the bathroom and just take a minute. I don't think people realize the power of taking a minute and taking that step back. In the workplace, I think that's such an important tool, is being able to just take a step back for a second, even if you're just going to the bathroom for 5 minutes and washing your hands with cold water. As a great Dr. Mita Johnson once said, to be mindful during your workday. Yeah, just be kind to your mind at work and take care of yourself at work, because that will lead into other problems at home.
Boy, great suggestions, and ones that I have definitely used. more times than I'd like to have needed, but definitely used. And Savannah, what self-care do you have for us?
My self-care is giving a gift. So it can be either giving a gift to somebody else or giving a gift to yourself. Treat yourself. But
Yes.
what I read is that it says life isn't all about working to make money. We have to treat ourselves sometimes. So giving is definitely a form of self-care.
Mhm. Sometimes the gift is just giving yourself the minute that Cass
Give yourself
referred
some
to.
time. Yes.
Like the
It's
gift of
definitely related.
taking it easy. Absolutely. So, as we embark on another calendar year, we hope that everyone is able to find some peace of mind in their chosen path. Again, thank you to all of those that have had an excessively challenging time throughout the past couple of years, and we are hopeful that things start looking up. I will say there are a lot of eager people in the mental health field and embarking on the mental health field that are happy to support you. So cheers to a new year, everyone, and good mental health at work.
Cheers
So-
to 2022.
Absolutely. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us again, and we will see you next week. Bye. everyone.
Bye.
Bye.